On the bid details page, you see a blank chart that shows the parts and required quantities that we indicated on the purchase order details screen. Remember, if you want to add more parts, simply click Return to PO and specify any additional parts at the bottom of the screen that results. Now that we have our bid table set up, it's time to add the bidders. Clicking Add Bidder brings up a new screen. Here we can add some key information about our bidder, beginning with our bidder name and size classification. As you type in the supplier name, note that it appears at the top of the screen. This will remain visible throughout the bid detail screens and becomes important when you have multiple bidders. Next, we're asked whether the bidder responded with a bid or a written no bid. Including written no bids is an important step that is often overlooked in competition documentation. If no response at all was received, then the bidder should not be included in these screens. You're then required to upload a copy of the bidder's response, whether it's their quote or their written no bid response. Last, you can indicate whether this bid was included in the competition or not. Choosing yes requires no additional information. However, if you indicate that this bid was removed for technical reasons or was outside of the competitive range, additional explanations are required. In this example, I'll click yes. When you're done with this screen, click Next. Now, we're being asked to input the actual bid. At the top of the screen, you can see that we're looking at Acme's bid screen, and specifically this part number. The quantity shown here in the header is the quantity that was included in the RFP. The first box has already been filled in for us. SpendLogic assumes that in most cases, the bidder will respond with a quantity that matches the RFP or RFQ. However, if your bidder chooses to include a different quantity, for example if they have capacity constraints, you can input a different bid quantity here. Doing so requires additional information. For now, I'll leave it with the same quantity as the RFQ. Next, we're required to input bid amounts for recurring and non-recurring costs. Input the exact prices that are provided by the bidder. In this case, I only had recurring costs. The bid adjustment boxes would be used if your competition resulted in bids that were not directly comparable. For example, if your RFQ requested pricing for widgets and one bidder included pricing for widgets plus carrying cases while the others did not, you would use the bid adjustment to remove the cost of carrying cases since you do not intend to purchase them. Positive values in this area will add scope and adjust the bid upward, while negative values will remove scope and adjust the bid downward. If a value is added to this box, you'll be required to provide an explanation. When you're done, click Next. If you have multiple parts, such as we do in this case, you'll be taken to the next part in the competition. Again, at the top, you see which bidder you're working on, and just below you'll see the part quantity, number, and definition. Complete this screen just as you did for the first part, then click Next. On this screen, we see that our price, delivery schedule, and technical abilities scoring categories are shown. This is the screen where we provide scores, which will then be weighted by the percentages we input previously. All of the categories are scored on a 0 to 10 scale. Let's step through each one now. The first category is price. Notice that the price score box cannot be edited. That's because SpendLogic automatically scores the bidders based on the prices that were input. The calculations that SpendLogic runs are shown here. The beauty of this calculation is that it results in scores that are distributed based on their proximity to the lowest score. In other words, if the bids each differ by 30%, the resulting scores will also differ by 30%, with the low score getting the full 10 points. Our next category is delivery schedule. Using the drop-down list, we see that the possible scores range from 0 to 10, with 10 being the high score. The middle score, 5, is satisfactory. This should be used as your baseline. If the bidder simply met the requirements, this is the score that would be used. Improving over and above the minimum requirements would result in a score of good, while not meeting requirements would result in a score of poor. Notice, good, satisfactory, and poor each have 3 possible scores associated with them. If you have 3 bidders and they all score good, you can compare them to one another and score the lowest one as good minus, one of them as good, and the best of the 3 as good plus. If you don't need to differentiate between bidders in this way, it's recommended that the middle value of each category is relied upon. For truly exceptional or unacceptable bids, 10 and 0 may be used. In this example, I'm assigning a score of 8, good, because the supplier indicated that deliveries can be made slightly sooner than was requested. After assigning a score, you're required to provide rationale. I'll input that same rationale here. Do the same thing for each scoring category included. When you're finished, click Done. I've gone ahead and done this already. As you can see, our chart has one bidder that's included. To add additional bidders, click Add Bidder. I've gone ahead and done this already, and here are the results. At this point, we have in front of us the completed bid table. In green, SpendLogic shows which bidder is recommended for award, Zedco in this case. You can see that even though Zedco has a higher price on item 2, total points are higher than Acme Co, and therefore Zedco wins the competition. Next, I'll show you how to change the award recipient as well as how to award individual lines separately. First, let's look at overriding the award. Remember back that we chose the single award option on the competition details page. As a result, we see that this supplier has been awarded all of the items. If for some reason you need to override this and award to the other bidder, you can do so by clicking the Override Award button. This brings up the Override Award screen, which requires you identify the other bidder and select the appropriate rationale. Once you click Done, you'll see that the award has been moved to the other bidder. You'll also notice that the competition is now shown as being modified. Clicking this allows you to change the awardee, the rationale, or remove all modifications. Once I remove the modifications and click Done, you can see that it reverts back to the original award state where Zedco was awarded all of the units. Now, let's take a look at a scenario where a decision has been made to award to multiple bidders. To do this, go to the Competition Details link in the left-hand navigation. Here, you can modify the award selection so that multiple awards may be made. Going to the bottom of the screen and clicking Next, you now see that our award recommendation has changed. Each bidder has been awarded a portion of the total based on a best value calculation for each part. In the background, SpendLogic calculates separate scores for each part number. The scores differ from the single award because of the differences in price. In this case, the low bidder is recommended for award in each case, but this isn't always going to be true. After changing to multiple awards, you'll see that we have an override award option for each line item. The functionality here is slightly different than it was with the single award. You can see that now we're given an option for specifying how many units were awarded. We can choose to award a portion to the first bidder and a portion to the second, or all can be awarded to one bidder. Just like with a single award, the line will show modified if a change is made. Furthermore, clicking Modified leads you back to the override screen. You can make changes here, or modifications can be removed by clicking the Remove All button at the bottom. If there are specific details that would be useful to someone reviewing this package, include them here in the competition summary. When you're done with this screen, click Next.